Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know, you always send us the most interesting stuff. This time it seems like a lot of you are really concerned about the same three AI stories, which, when you think about it, is pretty fascinating in itself. It looks like AI is really starting to touch more and more parts of our lives. Today we're going to dive deep into all three of these stories. And to help us do that, we have our amazing AI expert back on the show.
It's great to be back.
So to kick things off, let's talk about that report about AI algorithms on platforms like X and how they could be skewing election-related content. I mean, some are even saying these algorithms are pushing conspiracy theories.
Yeah, this is one of those things where the very thing that makes these algorithms so effective,
Yeah.
keeping users engaged and scrolling, that's the same thing that can make them dangerous, especially during an election.
Because they're not really able to tell the difference between like real information and something totally made up.
Exactly. An algorithm might see that a conspiracy theory is getting a ton of engagement, and then it just pushes that content out further and further without really understanding the damage it could cause.
So is the concern here that AI could actually be manipulating voters without them even knowing it?
That's definitely one of the big worries, and it's why so many experts are saying we need more transparency when it comes to these algorithms.
Especially when it comes to elections.
Yeah, we need to know what data these algorithms are trained on, who's controlling them, and how all of that might be leading to bias.
Right, because we need to make sure that people are actually getting accurate information when they're making such important decisions.
See, exactly. It's not about censorship. It's about making sure that the process is fair.
But how do you teach an AI to understand the intent behind something?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Like, how do you teach an AI to know when something is satire or when something is misinformation on purpose?
Or even just like a joke.
Right. We're basically trying to teach AI human psychology, which is a lot harder than teaching it to, play chess or translate languages.
So until AI can understand those things, can we really trust it to be handling something as important as election information?
It's a tough balance.
Because on one hand, you don't want AI interfering in elections, but on the other hand, you don't want to limit free speech either.
Exactly. And that's why this is such a complex issue. It's not just about technology. It's about democracy and free speech and all these really big ideas.
It's about what kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah, and finding that balance is going to require a lot of careful thought and collaboration.
It really makes you think, like, could your vote actually be swayed by an AI without you even realizing it?
It's a possibility that we need to take seriously.
Okay, so speaking of things that are a little unsettling, let's move on to our next story. This one's about X updating its terms of service to allow user data to be used for AI training. And there's no immediate opt-out.
Yeah, I can see why people are upset about that.
Because on one hand, you can see how using our data to train AI could lead to some pretty cool advancements, like more personalized experiences.
Definitely. I mean, AI needs data to learn and improve.
So the more data it has, the better it can get at things like recommending products or even diagnosing diseases.
Right. It becomes more intuitive, more personalized.
But then there's the whole privacy issue.
Yeah, and that's the other side of the coin. While there are definitely benefits to using our data to train AI, it also raises concerns about privacy and autonomy.
Because even if you agree to share your data, you might not really understand how it's being used.
Exactly, and that's where the idea of informed consent comes in.
Like, people need to know exactly what they're agreeing to.
And they need to have the option to say no.
But even if we have informed consent, couldn't this still lead to something called profiling?
Where AI is basically predicting and influencing our behavior without our permission.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a real concern. And it's why we need to be really careful about how we're using AI.
And why we need strong laws in place to protect people.
Right, because technology is moving so fast. And the laws need to keep up.
It's like a constant race.
It is.
So we're basically being asked to make a trade-off, a more personalized digital experience in exchange for maybe losing some of our privacy.
And that's a decision that each individual has to make for themselves.
Okay, so for our last story today, let's talk about something that's both fascinating and a little bit creepy. AI that can actually read and respond to our emotions. I mean, that sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It does, doesn't it? And the technology behind it is pretty amazing. We're talking about AI that can analyze not just what we say, but how we say it.
Like our tone of voice and even our facial expressions.
Exactly. And then it can use that information to create incredibly realistic 3D animations.
So imagine like a video game character that can actually react to your emotions.
Or a virtual assistant that can tell when you're feeling stressed and offer to help.
I mean, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
They are.
But of course, there are also some potential downsides. Like, what about deepfakes?
Yeah, that's a big concern.
If AI can create these incredibly realistic simulations of people, then how do we know what's real anymore?
And how do we prevent this technology from being used to spread misinformation or manipulate people?
Because if you can't tell the difference between a real person and a simulation, then how can you trust anything you see online?
That's the challenge we're facing, and it's why it's so important to be aware of these technologies and to think critically about the information we're consuming.
So how do we even begin to address these concerns?
Well, one important step is transparency. People need to know when they're interacting with AI-generated content.
So like a label that says, this video was created using AI.
Exactly, so that viewers can make informed decisions about what they're watching.
And about what to believe.
Right, because we're entering a world where the line between reality and simulation is becoming increasingly blurred.
It's both exciting and a little bit scary.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about AI's potential to influence elections, to compromise our privacy, and even to manipulate our emotions.
And these are just a few of the challenges we're facing as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
So it seems like we're at a pretty crucial moment
We are.
where we need to make some important decisions about how we want AI to shape our future.
And those decisions are going to require a lot of thoughtful discussion and collaboration.
Because ultimately, the future of AI is up to us.
It is.
So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk more about what that future might look like.
It's like we keep coming back to this idea of control.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, who's really in charge here?
Exactly. Are we controlling AI, or is it starting to control us?
Especially with these algorithms, it feels like they have so much power over what we see and what we believe.
And it's not just the algorithms, it's the data, too.
Right, like who gets to decide how our data is used? And what are the limits?
It's a really complex issue, and honestly, it feels like we're still trying to figure it all out.
Well, that's why we're having these conversations, right?
Exactly. We need to be talking about these things, and we need to be asking tough questions.
Because the decisions we make now about AI are going to have huge consequences down the road.
They are.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about the potential risks of AI, but is there another side to this story?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, can AI actually be a force for good?
I think it definitely can.
Okay, I'm listening.
For example, think about healthcare. AI could help doctors diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately.
Which could save lives.
Exactly. Or in education.
AI could create personalized learning experiences for every student.
That's right. It could help students learn at their own pace and in a way that makes sense to them.
That's amazing.
And those are just a couple of examples. There are so many ways that AI could be used to make the world a better place.
But how do we make sure that happens?
How do we make sure that AI is used for good and not for bad?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, but I do think it starts with having these conversations and with being aware of both the potential benefits and the potential risks of AI.
So it's about being informed and engaged.
Ex-
And about making sure that our voices are heard.
Because the future of AI is going to be shaped by the choices we make today.
Okay, so on that note, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back for the final part of our deep dive. You know, it's kind of amazing to think about how fast all of this is happening. Like, AI is changing the world so quickly.
It really is. The pace of innovation is just incredible.
But sometimes it feels like we're kind of playing catch up.
Yeah.
You know, like AI is already out there reshaping everything, and we're still trying to figure out what it all means.
That's a good point. It's like we're building the plane while we're flying it.
Exactly. So where do we even begin? Like, how do we make sure that all of this incredible technology is actually used for good?
I think the key is responsible innovation.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means being thoughtful about how we develop and deploy AI. It means thinking about the potential consequences, both positive and negative.
So not just focusing on what we can do, but also on what we should do.
Right, because just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
So how do we figure out what we should do?
Well, I think it starts with having open and honest conversations.
Like the one we're having right now.
Exactly. We need to talk about the ethical implications of AI.
And we need to involve everyone in those conversations, not just the tech experts.
Right, because AI is going to impact all of us, so we all need to have a say in how it's developed.
But who gets to make the rules? Like, who decides what's ethical and what's not?
That's a tough question, and I don't think there's a simple answer.
Because it's not just about technology, it's about values.
Exactly. It's about what kind of society we want to create.
So it sounds like we need some kind of global collaboration on this.
I think so. We need governments and tech companies and researchers and everyday people all working together.
Because ultimately, the future of AI is up to us.
It is.
So what can we do, like, as individuals?
Well, first of all, stay informed.
Read about AI, follow the news, ask questions.
Exactly. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions about this technology.
And to advocate for the kind of future you want to see.
Because your voice matters.
Everyone's voice matters.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think we're just about out of time, but this has been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And it's clear that there's a lot more to talk about, so thank you so much for being here today.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of tech and innovation. Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring.